In my last video, we talked about Mikal Bridges and why he seems poised to be the NBA's next breakout player or star. Well, there's another former lottery pick on the Brooklyn Nets who they received back in the Kevin Durant trade, and that man is Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson has kind of gone under the radar with how well Mikal Bridges has played, as well as the fact that a guy who was a top 5 player in the league, Kevin Durant, was included in said trade. But today, we're going to talk about why Cam Johnson is one of the most talented young guys in the league, his upcoming payday, and why he's someone people need to keep an eye on. Also, if you guys enjoyed the video, then make sure to give it a like as it helps out a lot. And if you enjoy the NBA, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Cam Johnson was selected by the Minnesota Timberwolves with the 11th pick in the 2019 NBA draft. However, much like the player he was traded to the Brooklyn Nets along with, Mikal Bridges, Johnson was also traded on his respective draft night, as immediately after drafting him, the Timberwolves sent Johnson along with Dario Saric to the Phoenix Suns for the player selected by the Suns with the 6th pick of the 2019 draft, Jarrett Culver. After a unique and somewhat rough journey during his collegiate career, it seemed Johnson was entering the NBA just hoping for some consistency and normality. However, it feels like Johnson's only getting his first chance for consistency, normality, and to get his feet wet as a top 3 option on a team and show off his true potential now with Brooklyn. The reason I say that is because just 8 games into his freshman season at the University of Pittsburgh, Johnson suffered a shoulder injury. In college basketball, a player is eligible to play in 9 games without losing a year of eligibility if they decide to redshirt. This of course meant that Johnson just narrowly met the requirements to redshirt, so Johnson redshirted for his freshman season in order to not lose a year of eligibility. Johnson would return to the court for Pitt as a redshirt freshman the following year, and luckily for Johnson, he would remain healthy for his redshirt freshman and sophomore seasons. Johnson would actually graduate from the University of Pittsburgh, though, with a degree in communications after just 3 years spent at Pitt. Johnson, however, still wanted to play college ball, so he decided to take advantage of the graduate transfer rule as he transferred to the University of North Carolina without having to sit out for a full season. Bad luck hit Johnson once again, though, as he needed surgery to fix a torn meniscus just 5 days after North Carolina's season opener in his first season in Chapel Hill. Johnson would return to the court after just 10 games missed for Carolina. However, injuries hindered Johnson's game a bit as his 3-point shooting percentage fell to just 34.1% opposed to the 41.5% he shot a season earlier with Pittsburgh. Johnson's senior season, though, was where he truly began to spread his wings and show off his potential, as Johnson averaged the highest points per game average of his entire collegiate career, averaging 16.9 points per game, as he also shot his highest percentages from the field and 3-point range of his collegiate career, finishing his senior season with shooting splits of 50% shooting from the field and 45% shooting from 3-point range, putting Johnson in prime position to be a lottery pick in the 2019 NBA draft, which of course he was, as he was selected with the 11th overall pick in said draft. Of course, once Johnson got his health on track, something had to go wrong, as during a solid rookie season with the Suns for Johnson, the entire world was hit with the pandemic. The NBA's 2019-20 regular season would be shortened, and Johnson and the Suns spent their final 8 games of the regular season inside the NBA's Orlando bubble, where they would be donned the Bubble Suns, as they would go 8-0 in Orlando, and Johnson was a key part of the Suns' success inside the bubble. Then, in his second year, the NBA returned with a shortened 72-game season where Johnson made key contributions off the bench to help the Phoenix Suns make their first NBA Finals appearance in just 28 years. Johnson continued to develop and put up his best statistical averages on a season-by-season basis in his 3rd season before the summertime rolled around and his name was thrown into trade rumors for Kevin Durant, who had requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets on June 30th, 2022. Johnson remained put in Phoenix for the first half of the 2022-23 NBA season before Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant both requested trades out of Brooklyn, and as a result, Cam Johnson and his Phoenix Suns teammate Mikal Bridges joined the Brooklyn Nets. Johnson averaged 11.2 points per game during his Phoenix Suns tenure, which definitely isn't bad, even though it might not jump out to you too much. However, it felt like Johnson never really had a set role with the Suns to show off his true potential and get comfortable, as injuries and roster changes on a season-by-season basis had him jumping from a bench player averaging 20 to 25 minutes a night to a starter playing 30 to 35 minutes a game. Johnson's ability to stretch the floor with his shooting, as well as his ability to defend all 5 positions depending on the matchup, is really where he shines though, and this is exactly why he fits so well as a starter when Phoenix called on him to do so, and this is also why the Brooklyn Nets have been so enamored with Johnson since the summer of 2022. Johnson was typically the 5th option on the court during his time in Phoenix when he did get the chance to go out there with the starters. Now with Brooklyn though, he's typically the team's 2nd or 3rd option behind Mikal Bridges and sometimes Spencer Dinwiddie, depending on how well Dinwiddie is shooting the ball in a particular game. And even though it's only been 5 games this far, Johnson has already surpassed his points per game average from his 17 games played with Phoenix this season, jumping from a points per game average of 13.9 points per game with the Suns to 16.2 points per game with the Nets. This shouldn't be surprising though, as Johnson is averaging nearly 4 more minutes played per game while taking nearly 3 more shot attempts per game. Johnson's shooting from behind the arc could improve a bit as he dropped from shooting 45% with Phoenix from earlier this season to just 30% from behind the arc during his 5-game stretch with Brooklyn. A drop in percentage should be expected when you're attempting more shots. However, the Nets have generated him some pretty open looks that he's missed, but with how good of a shooter he is, his shooting is expected to come back around soon enough. One area where Johnson has been good though is his efficiency. While his player efficiency rating has dropped by 0.3% since arriving in Brooklyn, the 17.2% he's averaging with Brooklyn and the 17.5% he's averaged overall on the season are still the highest PER of Johnson's entire 4-year NBA career. Johnson has also done this while putting up the highest usage rating of his entire career this season, as well as during his short time spent with the Nets thus far. Also, while his plus-minus rating is down during his time spent with Brooklyn, this is expected when you go from a championship contender to a young middle-of-the-way playoff/play-in team. Now, Johnson has had 2 very solid performances already during his tenure in Brooklyn. His 18-point outing in the Nets' 11-point win over the Miami Heat just prior to the All-Star break, and his 27-point outing from this past Sunday in the Nets' loss against the Atlanta Hawks, as Johnson hit a huge 3 to tie the game up with 7 seconds remaining and played great defense the whole way through. So Johnson's truly excelled offensively with Brooklyn despite a few flaws from him thus far, and of course, his defense has been great as well. That shouldn't be too surprising though, as we talked before about his terrific ability to play defense and switch on defense. Johnson's great play, however, is exactly why the Nets are in a bit of a tough situation once the summertime rolls around. Reason being is Cam Johnson will be a restricted free agent this summer, and I won't be surprised if a team offers Johnson a huge offer sheet, potentially even a max contract, in which he signs and leaves it up to the Nets to match the offer if they want to pay him, potentially over $100 million over the course of 4 seasons. That's a big contract for Johnson, but if the Nets want to retain him, it seems like that's a contract that's in the cards for Johnson. The Nets are in a weird spot as the NBA's salary cap for all 30 teams is projected to be $134 million next season with a luxury tax line of $162 million, while the Nets already have $145 million committed to players on their roster for next season. The Nets have $37 million going to Ben Simmons next season, which is the worst contract in basketball at the moment in my eyes, and with Spencer Dinwiddie making $20 million next season and Joe Harris set to make $19.9 million next season, I would expect Dinwiddie, Harris, and potentially even Simmons to be traded this summer. The Nets obviously don't want to max out their spending with a team that's barely a playoff team. The true issue resides with if the Nets are willing to give up big-time assets in order to dump Simmons and Harris's bloated contracts and can find a contender to take on Dinwiddie's deal. And while Dinwiddie's deal isn't as bloated as the other 2 guys, it's clearly a big contract and a bit above Dinwiddie's pay grade in my eyes. Now, while Joe Harris is looked at as the Nets' key catch-and-shoot player, Johnson is a much better player than Harris overall, and I think the fact that they're probably going to have similar contracts starting next season means that there's only room for one of these 2 guys on the Nets, and that guy is, of course, Cam Johnson. If the Nets want to get back to contending for a title, they're going to need to acquire a star for this team, and I believe their best bet and the most likely option is landing a disgruntled star in a trade, opposed to grabbing one in future free agencies. With that said, I think the Nets should do their best to make sure they don't have to break the bank so they can keep Johnson's trade value high if they ever do choose to trade him in a package for a star. The Nets' issue is, though, that teams will break the bank to pay him, whether it be because they legitimately want Johnson on their roster or simply just to try and hurt the Nets, so that when the Nets are forced to match the offer sheet to retain Johnson, they'll end up owing him a boatload of money, potentially even a max contract, and that strategy is pretty similar to how Nets GM Sean Marks did the same thing to teams in 2016 and 2017 free agency. At the end of the day, though, Johnson is a terrific young player who can start on a championship contending team. His ability to stretch the floor on offense as well as defend nearly every player on the court if opponents go small is something only very few players can do and makes him a perfect fit in today's NBA. This is obviously also why he's so important to the Brooklyn Nets' future. However, if they get forced into paying him too much, his contract might hinder the Nets' ability to return to title contention status. However, I do want to end this video on a more positive note though, and simply say, contract situation aside, Johnson should be looked at as a key building block by the Brooklyn Nets and deserves to be appreciated by Nets fans. Johnson's ability to move and work off the ball is so important to any team he plays for with today's NBA, along with his great defense and ability to stretch the floor on the offensive side of the ball. The issues with Johnson aren't even his fault and lie more on the Nets' doorstep as a result of trades they made and haven't had the time to truly clean up yet from the mess they made. I would say though, expect a very big offseason from the Nets, not in terms of them making acquisitions for players, but more so making moves to clean up their salary bill, doing what they need to in order to retain Cam Johnson, and also having a real focus on the NBA draft for the first time in a few seasons. The Nets' salary problem isn't Johnson's fault, and while I of course don't want to see him get overpaid, he's an extremely talented player who is a perfect fit in today's NBA, and I'd like to see him remain in Brooklyn unless he's used in a trade to acquire a star. I want to know though what you guys think about Cam Johnson, the Brooklyn Nets' upcoming offseason and future, or anything we talked about in the video down below in the comment section, so let me know down below. If you like the video though, then make sure to give it a like as it helps out a lot. And if you like the Nets or the NBA, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. That way you stay up to date with all of the future content on my channel. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm SCJ and I am out. Peace.